It's been 9 days since I closed Lily Harper's case. 9 days since I stood beneath the Harper cabin for the second time and watched another child finally come home. People tell me I should take time off, get some sleep, go somewhere the trees don't whisper. They don't understand. The moment I stop looking, Mr. Grins keeps moving, and I can't allow that. Rain tapped against the windows of my office, while the old clock on the wall counted every second louder than the last. The room hadn't changed in years. Stacks of reports, coffee gone cold, maps pinned to the wall, and 2 filing cabinets that seemed to define my entire existence. One read open, the other read closed. Every morning I looked at both. Every morning I wished the open cabinet were empty. I unlocked the closed cabinet with the brass key around my neck. Inside rested 2 folders side by side. Case file 001. Ethan Harper. Beside it, case file 002. Lily Harper. For a long moment I simply stared. 2 children, 2 mysteries solved. 2 truths that arrived only because someone wanted them to. I closed the drawer carefully. The metal latch clicked into place. The sound echoed through the empty office. Then I turned toward the open cabinet. Only 2 folders remained. I reached inside and removed the one resting on top. The tab read, Case File 003, David Harper. Father, missing, cold case. Years had passed since anyone had seen him. The official investigation believed he disappeared sometime after the family began vanishing. Official investigations had been wrong before. I carried the file to my desk. The photograph attached to the cover showed David Harper standing on the porch of the cabin. Tall, broad shoulders, work boots covered in mud. He wasn't smiling. Instead, he seemed to be staring into the forest beyond the camera. I had seen that expression before, not in photographs, in mirrors. It was the look of someone who had realized something was watching. I opened the file. The pages smelt of old paper and dust. Search reports, interviews, property surveys, volunteer logs. Every page ended the same way. No confirmed sightings. No remains recovered. The department had eventually labeled it inactive. I never did. To me, inactive only meant waiting, and Mr. Grins was patient. 3 slow knocks interrupted my thoughts. I looked toward my office door. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices. I stood and opened it. The hallway stretched empty beneath flickering lights. The receptionist had gone home hours earlier. No one stood outside. Then I noticed something on the floor. A muddy boot print. Only one. It pointed into my office, not away from it. I followed the print. It stopped beside my desk. There, resting on top of David Harper's file, sat a folded piece of paper. I knew I hadn't left it there. I unfolded it slowly. Elegant handwriting. The same handwriting that had followed me through Lily's investigation. It read,
"You're getting faster. He waited longer than the children."
I read it twice, then folded it carefully into an evidence sleeve. My desk phone rang. Unknown caller. I answered immediately. Silence. Then the familiar growling voice.
"You close too.
Yes."
You'll close for."
I gripped the receiver tighter. "Who are you?"
You keep asking the wrong question.
What should I ask? The answer came almost gently.
Why am I helping you?
The line went dead. For the first time since this investigation began years ago, I couldn't answer that question. Mr. Grins wasn't hiding evidence. He wasn't destroying evidence. He was delivering it. Every case closed because he decided it should. That thought stayed with me as I packed David Harper's file, my recorder, camera, and flashlight. By sunset, I was driving toward Grinning Pines again. The road knew me now, and I feared I knew it too well. The Harper cabin emerged through the trees. Nothing had changed. The porch sagged exactly as before. The broken upstairs shutter swayed gently in the wind. The crime scene tape from Lily's recovery had been removed only days earlier, yet something was different. A rocking chair sat on the front porch. It had never been there. It moved slowly, back, forward, back, forward. No wind touched the trees. Still, the chair continued rocking. I climbed the steps cautiously. The movement stopped. Resting on the seat was an old pocket watch. The hands were frozen. 3 o'clock. Attached to the chain was a handwritten tag. I turned it over. Only 5 words appeared.
He never left the property.
My pulse quickened. I looked toward the forest, then back toward the cabin. Somewhere in the distance, 3 slow whistles echoed through Grinning Pines. I slipped the watch into an evidence bag and reached for the front door. Before my hand touched the knob, a voice behind me whispered,
"You're almost ready, Daniel."
I spun around. The porch was empty. I stood motionless on the porch. The whisper had been clear.
"You're almost ready, Daniel."
I spun toward the tree line, my flashlight cutting through the growing darkness. Nothing. The rocking chair sat perfectly still. The pocket watch rested safely inside my evidence bag. No footprints surrounded the porch, except my own. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been standing close enough to touch me. I switched on my recorder. Case file 003. Investigation continues. At approximately 7:18 p.m., I heard an unidentified voice speaking my name. No source located. I stopped recording. Months ago, I would have questioned my own hearing. Not anymore. Mr. Grins didn't need witnesses. He only needed me. That was what made him dangerous. He wasn't trying to scare everyone. He was trying to change one person. Me. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside the Harper cabin. The familiar smell of old wood and damp earth greeted me. I knew every room, every hallway, every staircase. I'd walked through this house more times than I could count. Yet every visit felt different. The cabin wasn't changing, it was remembering. The flashlight beam swept across the living room. Everything appeared untouched. Then I noticed the fireplace. A fire was burning. The flames danced quietly behind a stack of fresh logs. I approached slowly. The ashes were warm. Someone had lit this fire recently. I knelt beside the hearth. A coffee mug sat on the mantel. Steam rose gently from the top. The coffee smelled fresh. I looked around the empty room. For one impossible second, I felt like I had interrupted someone who had simply stepped outside. Then I noticed a folded newspaper lying beside the mug. The headline was years old. The story covered the Harper family disappearances. Someone had circled David Harper's photograph in black ink. Across the bottom margin, elegant handwriting read,
"You keep looking for a victim. Try looking for a father."
I slipped the newspaper into an evidence sleeve. My hands were steady. My heartbeat wasn't. I walked upstairs. The hallway looked exactly as it had during Lily's investigation. The family photographs still lined the wall. One caught my attention. David stood beside Emily, while Ethan and Lily smiled in front of them. Something was different. I pulled an older crime scene photograph from my case folder and compared it. In the original picture, David's right hand rested on Lily's shoulder. Now it didn't. His arm hung at his side. The photograph had changed, or I had. I stared until my phone vibrated. Unknown caller. I answered. Silence. Then the familiar voice.
What changed?
The photograph.
No. You did.
The line remained open. I finally asked the question, why are you doing this?
Because no one else listens.
The call ended. I looked back at the photograph, and David's hand was once again resting on Lily's shoulder. I lowered the frame and stepped into the master bedroom. The bed remained covered in dust. The dresser drawers stood open from previous searches. I knew exactly what had been catalogued, exactly what had been removed. Then I noticed something impossible. A pair of muddy work boots sat neatly beside the bed. They weren't there 2 weeks ago. They weren't listed in evidence. I crouched beside them. The mud was still wet. Inside the left boot rested a folded receipt. It wasn't from a store. It was from a small diner nearly 40 miles from Grinning Pines. The date stopped me cold. It was printed only 4 days earlier. That couldn't be right. David Harper had been missing for years, yet someone had apparently purchased coffee and eggs in his name less than a week ago. At the bottom, someone had written,
He still eats breakfast.
I hurried downstairs. The fire in the fireplace had gone out. The coffee mug was gone. The newspaper was gone. Only the evidence sleeve in my bag proved it had existed. Then I heard footsteps overhead. I rushed back upstairs. Every room was empty. Every window was locked. The footsteps stopped directly above me. There was no third floor, only the attic. I pulled down the attic ladder. Dust fell into the hallway. The wooden steps groaned beneath my weight as I climbed. The beam from my flashlight swept across old boxes, broken furniture, and cobwebs. Then it landed on a single wooden chair. Someone had positioned it facing the attic window. On the seat sat an old leather journal. Across the cover, burned into the leather, were 2 words. David Harper. My pulse quickened. I reached for it. The journal felt warm, as though someone else had been holding it moments before. I opened the cover. The first several pages were blank. Then I found writing. Not a diary. Not notes. Just one sentence repeated over and over in the same careful handwriting.
He told me to keep watching the trees.
Page after page, the same sentence, until the final page. There, in different handwriting, elegant, familiar, unmistakable, was 6 words.
You're reading this exactly when I planned. Don't leave yet, Daniel. He's coming home.
I stared at the final page of David Harper's journal. Don't leave yet, Daniel. He's coming home. The words seemed heavier than the leather book itself. I checked the handwriting again. It wasn't David's. It matched every note I had received since reopening the Harper files. Mr. Grins. He wasn't documenting my investigation. He was directing it. I slipped the journal into an evidence bag and climbed down from the attic. The hallway was silent. The ladder creaked behind me as I folded it back into the ceiling. For a moment, I stood listening. Nothing. Then I heard another sound, paper moving. Not outside, not upstairs, inside the dining room. Someone was turning pages. Slowly. 1 page. Then another. I hurried downstairs. The dining room table was covered with documents, except I hadn't left any documents there. David's case file lay open. Beside it sat Lily's. Next to hers rested Ethan's. All 3 files had somehow been removed from my locked evidence case in the truck. I knew I hadn't brought them inside, yet there they were, arranged neatly, waiting. Across the top page, someone had written in black ink,
"You're reading them in the wrong order."
I looked through the files. Nothing appeared out of place. Then I noticed page numbers written in pencil. Not official numbers, new numbers. Someone had renumbered the reports. The sequence jumped from Ethan's case directly into David's. Lily's evidence fit between them, as though all 3 investigations formed one story. Not 3. I gathered the files and placed them back into my case. When I closed the lid, I froze. A muddy fingerprint rested on the handle, large, adult, fresh. I compared it with my own glove. Too large. The print hadn't been there moments earlier. I photographed it. When I looked back through the camera screen, the fingerprint was gone. Only the clean handle remained. I lowered the camera. The print was back. My phone vibrated. Unknown caller. I answered. Silence. Then the growling voice.
"You're finally asking the right questions."
I don't even know what the questions are anymore.
"You do."
What am I missing?
"The father searched for them before you did."
The line went dead. I repeated the sentence aloud. The father searched for them. That changed everything. The original investigation assumed David Harper disappeared. What if he hadn't disappeared immediately? What if he had spent days looking for Ethan and Lily? What if someone had been leading him through Grinning Pines exactly the way I was being led now? I hurried back to the journal. Every page repeated the same sentence.
He told me to keep watching the trees.
Then I noticed faint impressions beneath the ink. Indented writing. Hidden. I held the page against my flashlight. Letters slowly appeared.
I can hear someone walking behind me.
Another page.
The whistles only happen when I'm alone. The cabin changes when I come back.
My pulse quickened. These weren't random thoughts. They were observations. The same observations I had been making. David Harper wasn't writing a diary. He was documenting an investigation, just like mine. Outside, thunder rolled across Grinning Pines. I walked onto the porch. The rocking chair remained exactly where I'd found it, except now someone sat in it. A man wearing a dark hat. His back faced me. I stepped forward. David. The chair rocked once, twice, then stopped. The figure didn't move. I reached out. The chair was empty. Only the pocket watch chain hung over the armrest, swinging gently. I picked it up. The hands no longer pointed to 3 o'clock. They pointed to 12. Inside the cover, hidden beneath years of scratches, was an engraving. D.H. David Harper. Beneath the initials, someone had recently carved 6 words.
I waited exactly where he told me.
I closed the watch. The metal felt warm. Far too warm for something left outside in the rain. Back inside the cabin, I spread the original property survey across the table. One line caught my attention. An abandoned logging road crossed the eastern edge of the Harper land before disappearing into Grinning Pines. Search teams had marked it inaccessible. I compared it with modern satellite maps. The road wasn't there anymore. Trees covered it completely. Yet someone had drawn a fresh circle over that exact location, using the same elegant handwriting. Below it appeared a message.
"You're following my path."
I grabbed my flashlight and recorder and headed toward the old logging road. The rain intensified. Branches scraped against one another high above me. The deeper I walked, the quieter the forest became. Then I saw something impossible. Nailed to a pine tree stood a weathered wooden sign. The words had been carved by hand, not years ago. Recently, it read,
"Welcome back, David."
Beneath it, in smaller letters, someone had added,
"Daniel, you're only borrowing his footsteps."
I couldn't stop staring at the sign. "Welcome back, David." Beneath it, "Daniel, you're only borrowing his footsteps." Rain rolled down the weathered wood, smearing dirt across the carved letters, but the message remained perfectly clear. I reached out and touched the sign. The wood was dry. Everything around it was soaked. I slowly pulled my hand away. I switched on my recorder. Case file 003. I've located what appears to be a recently carved sign along the abandoned logging road. The wording suggests David Harper traveled this path before me. I stopped recording. That sentence bothered me. Not because it was impossible, because it made sense. What if David hadn't simply vanished? What if he had been following clues exactly like I was? I stepped beyond the sign and followed what remained of the old logging road. Nature had reclaimed most of it. Roots broke through the earth. Branches hung low across the trail. Yet every 50 feet I found another marker. A broken branch, a stacked pile of stones, fresh scratches on tree bark. Someone had marked this route, not years ago, recently, as though expecting someone to follow. The deeper I walked, the quieter Grinning Pines became. The silence pressed against my ears. Even the rain seemed distant. Then I heard footsteps, not mine. Behind me, I stopped walking. The footsteps stopped too. I turned. Nothing. The trail stretched empty into darkness. I faced forward again. This time they sounded closer. I refused to run. Fear makes mistakes. Mr. Grins counted on mistakes. Instead, I walked. The footsteps matched mine perfectly. One step behind, always one, never two, never beside me. I reached a clearing where an enormous fallen pine blocked the trail. Carved into the trunk were 4 words.
"He almost turned back."
I stared at them. David or me? Beside the tree sat an old backpack covered in dirt and pine needles. The canvas had rotted with age. I carefully opened it. Inside were a flashlight, a water bottle, and a folded property map. The flashlight no longer worked. The water bottle had long since dried out, but the map had circles drawn across it, red circles. The same elegant handwriting appeared beside them.
"Keep going."
My pulse quickened. The circles followed the exact route I had taken over the last 2 days. That was impossible. No one should have known where I intended to search, unless I looked closer. The circles continued beyond my current location. They predicted where I would go next. Someone wasn't documenting my investigation. Someone had planned it. My phone rang. Unknown caller. I answered immediately. The familiar voice spoke before I could.
"Did you find his bag?"
Who are you?
"You keep asking that."
Was this David's?
"He carried it until he didn't need it anymore."
What happened to him?
"You're standing where he asked the same question."
The call ended. Thunder rolled overhead. The wind suddenly returned, sending the trees swaying. For the first time all evening, Grinning Pines sounded alive. Branches groaned. Leaves rustled. Then, a scream like I've never heard before. It sent chills down my spine. The sound echoed through the clearing. I raised my flashlight toward the trees. A figure stood between two pines, tall, motionless, watching. I blinked. The figure was gone. I hurried toward where it had stood. The ground beneath the trees was soft from rain. There should have been footprints. They weren't. Only a single work glove, leather, worn. Inside the glove were the stitched initials. David Harper. Tucked inside one finger was a folded note. I unfolded it carefully. The handwriting wasn't elegant this time. It was shaky. Desperate. It read, "Don't follow." For the first time since reopening the Harper files, I believed I was reading David Harper's own words, not Mr. Grin's. The note continued.
If you're reading this, he knows your name now.
My heartbeat quickened. Then I remembered. Mr. Grin's had addressed me by name from the very beginning. The warning had come too late. A cold breeze swept through the clearing. The flashlight flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. Then went dark. I stood alone in complete darkness. No moon, no stars, no sound except my breathing. Then from somewhere ahead of me, a man's exhausted voice whispered. I froze. The voice came again, barely audible. Before I could answer, my flashlight suddenly turned back on. The clearing was empty, but nailed to the tree directly in front of me was a fresh piece of paper. Only 5 words were written across it.
You're catching up to him.
I stood in the clearing with the note trembling in my hand. You're catching up to him. The paper was dry despite the rain. The nail holding it to the tree looked new, the metal still bright against the dark bark. I looked around once more. No footprints, no movement, only the endless rows of pine trees staring back at me like silent witnesses. For the first time in years, I wondered if I was investigating Mr. Grin's or following his instructions. I switched on the recorder. Case file 003. Evening entry. The evidence recovered today suggests David Harper may have traveled this exact route before his disappearance. Multiple items associated with him have been located, but their appearance cannot be explained by the original investigation. I hesitated, then added quietly, I believe someone is placing evidence ahead of me. I clicked the recorder off. The words sounded impossible, yet they were true. I unfolded the property map from the backpack once more. The red circles ended at a location I hadn't visited, just beyond the eastern boundary of the Harperland, an abandoned ranger station. According to county records, it had been condemned years before the Harper family disappeared. Search teams had entered it once. Nothing was found. The building had been forgotten. Mr. Grin's apparently hadn't forgotten it. The hike took nearly 40 minutes. Branches scraped against my coat while the forest grew darker around me. Then I saw it. The ranger station leaned to one side, its roof partially collapsed beneath years of neglect. A faded government emblem still hung beside the entrance. The front door stood open. I knew enough by now not to ask why. I simply stepped inside. Dust covered everything except the floor. Fresh muddy boot prints crossed the room. I followed the prints into what had once been an office. Metal filing cabinets lined the walls. Most stood open and empty. One remained locked. Its paint had nearly peeled away, but a handwritten label still clung to the drawer. Harper. I stared. No official investigation would have organized evidence this way. Someone had created this. Someone wanted me to find it. I forced the drawer open. Inside sat a single cassette tape. Nothing else. A note was taped to the cassette.
Listen alone.
Against my better judgment, I inserted it into my portable recorder. Static filled the room. Then a man's voice.
I don't know who's going to hear this. I've been following him for 3 days. I think he wants me to.
My heart pounded. The voice sounded remarkably like David Harper. The recording continued.
He leaves signs where only I can find them. I hear whistles at night. I keep thinking I'll find my family if I just keep walking. If someone finds this, don't trust the cabin.
The recording stopped. No click, no static, just silence. I rewound the tape, pressed play again. This time the voice was different, calm, measured, familiar.
Daniel.
I froze.
You've always been better at listening than David.
My grip tightened on the recorder.
He stopped asking questions. You didn't. That's why you'll finish what he couldn't.
The tape ended. I checked it again. Blank. Nothing but static. Outside, the wind had picked up. I hurried back toward the trail. Halfway there, I noticed another sign nailed to a tree. Fresh wood. Fresh carving.
He never left.
Below it.
You keep walking past him.
I searched the surrounding area. Nothing. Then my flashlight reflected off something buried beneath wet leaves. A rusted key. Attached to it was a brass tag stamped with 4 numbers. 1947. The year the Harper cabin had been built. I slipped the key into an evidence bag. Immediately, my phone rang. Unknown caller, I answered. The growling voice spoke.
Did you find it?
The key.
Yes.
What does it open?
You've already opened it.
What are you talking about?
The house.
The line went dead. I stood motionless. The house. Not a door for the house itself. By the time I reached the cabin, darkness had settled over Grinning Pines. The porch light glowed again, despite the disconnected power. The front door stood open. I entered cautiously. The dining room table was covered with photographs, dozens of them. Everyone showed me, walking through the forest, standing on the porch, examining evidence. Some had clearly been taken earlier that day. Someone had been watching my entire investigation. At the center of the photograph sat an old framed picture of David Harper. Across the glass, written in elegant black ink, were 8 words.
He thought he was looking for his family.
Beneath them appeared another line.
He was really looking for me.
I felt the room grow colder. Then I noticed fresh dirt scattered across the floor. It formed a narrow trail leading toward the hallway, toward the exact place beneath the cabin where Ethan and Lily had been found. I followed the trail until it stopped over the repaired section of flooring. The dirt was dark and damp, recently disturbed. I knelt and brushed some aside. Mixed into it was a single object, a gold wedding band. Inside were engraved the words, David and Emily. As I lifted it into the light, 3 slow knocks echoed beneath the floorboards. Then, for the first time since I began investigating the Harper family, a man's voice spoke from somewhere below me.
I'm tired of waiting, Daniel.
I didn't answer the voice. The whisper beneath the floorboards faded into silence.
I'm tired of waiting, Daniel.
I remained kneeling over the disturbed dirt, David Harper's wedding band resting in my gloved hand. My flashlight shook slightly, not because I was afraid, because I already knew what I was going to find. I switched on my recorder. It's file 003, final investigation entry. The area beneath the eastern foundation appears recently disturbed. I looked toward the floor. This location has already been excavated twice. First during the recovery of Ethan Harper, again 17 days later, during the recovery of Lily Harper. There was nothing else beneath this cabin either time. I paused. If there is something here now, someone put it here recently. I called the department. The dispatcher recognized both my name and the address before I finished speaking. Less than an hour later, crime scene vehicles pulled into the driveway. The lead forensic investigator climbed out, looked at the cabin, then looked back at me.
You've got to be kidding.
I said nothing. He sighed.
This is the third time we've been to this house.
No one laughed. No one complained. The cabin had earned everyone's respect and everyone's fear. Another investigator stepped onto the porch and stared into the hallway.
We tore this place apart during Ethan's case, and we went through it again during Lily's. Daniel, there wasn't anything else down there.
I know.
Then why are we here?
I looked toward the disturbed flooring. Because someone came back. The room fell silent. No one argued. Not anymore. The team photographed every inch of the dining room before removing the repaired floorboards. Fresh screws. Fresh lumber. The same boards installed after Lily's recovery, only days earlier. The lead technician knelt and pushed his hand into the soil. His expression changed immediately.
This dirt's loose.
Another investigator joined him.
No way.
He scooped up a handful.
It's moist underneath.
He slowly stood.
This has been disturbed recently.
How recently? He looked at the earth again.
Not years,
He swallowed.
but days.
The excavation began. Every person in the room worked quietly. No one wanted to be the first to say what everyone was thinking. One technician finally broke the silence.
I processed this exact spot during Ethan's recovery, and I was here for Lily.
He shook his head.
We didn't miss anything.
The lead investigator looked toward me.
If there's someone here now,
He never finished the sentence. He didn't have to. We all understood. Minutes later, the excavation stopped. The technician slowly raised his hand.
I've got something.
The room froze. Cameras clicked. Evidence markers were placed. Carefully, layer by layer, the recovery continued. The first item uncovered was a rusted belt buckle, then fragments of work clothing, finally a worn leather wallet. The technician opened it carefully. Inside rested an old driver's license. He looked at me, then quietly read the name.
David Harper.
No one moved. Outside, rain struck the roof in steady rhythm. Inside, the only sound was someone saying,
This wasn't here before.
Hours later, the medical examiner approached.
The remains are consistent with an adult male.
I nodded. He continued.
The surrounding soil doesn't match the undisturbed earth beneath the cabin.
What does that mean?
It means the ground was opened and filled again.
When?
I can't give an exact time, but it certainly wasn't years ago.
I already knew, just like Ethan, just like Lily. Mr. Grins hadn't been preserving the Harper family. He'd been deciding when they would come home.
Well, that's 3 files closed. Ethan Harper came home. Lily Harper came home. And now, after years of silence, David Harper has come home to... But if you've been paying attention, you already know this story was never about the bodies. It was never about the cabin. It was never even about Grinning Pines. It's about the one thing waiting in the darkness between every clue. Mr. Grins, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me through another investigation. Every view, every comment, every like, and every subscription helps keep these forgotten case files alive. But our work isn't finished. 3 Harper files now sit inside Daniel Mercer's closed cabinet. Only one remains. And if Mr. Grins is telling the truth, Emily Harper already knows Daniel is coming. Join me next time as we open the final Harper investigation. Case File 004. Emily Harper, the last missing member of the Harper family. The last unanswered question, and perhaps the most dangerous file Daniel Mercer has ever opened. Until then, keep the lights on, watch the tree line, and if you hear 3 slow knocks coming from somewhere they shouldn't, don't answer. This is the Crooked Narrator signing off.